Namaskar viewers, welcome to our channel Nationalist View, and today we are going to start a very interesting series. It's a multi-part series on the Taliban, and we are going to talk about a lot of aspects related to Taliban and Taliban's presence in Afghanistan and how it captured power in 1990s, then how it recaptured power again recently, how it has emerged, it has re-emerged, what are the historical contexts, what is its relationship with Pakistan, and how Afghanistan is becoming victim of the great game and what lies ahead. But before we discuss about what lies ahead, it is very important to understand this phenomena of Taliban. So this is the first part of the multi-part series. We will be bringing you the other part soon, in which we will discuss threadbare different aspects of Taliban. So Taliban is basically an Islamic fundamentalist group which was decimated 2 decades ago by the United States and the NATO forces. It was decimated because it had given sanctuary to Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda terrorists had conducted 9/11. We know the terrorist act which happened in America, following which United States and its allies invaded Afghanistan to hunt for Al-Qaeda, and they also decimated Taliban, which was ruling and giving protection to Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan at that time. However, interestingly and shockingly, Taliban has resurrected itself, and it appears to be a much more formidable force now. On 15th of August 2021, it captured Kabul again. Kabul is the capital of, political capital of, and the seat of power of Afghanistan. And we also saw Russia, China, United States, all these major countries, they were trying to have negotiations with Taliban, and these negotiations had started much earlier, not now. So why to try and negotiate with an Islamic fundamentalist force which you know had given protection and sanctuary to those who attacked against you? So these are intriguing questions about which there are no simple answers, because these are related to complex geostrategic and geopolitical issues. In case of Afghanistan, it becomes even more complex because of the Afghanistan as a nation, or the nationhood of Afghanistan is itself a complex issue. Because of this complexity, we are seeing the complex situations arising out of these circumstances. So there is a historical background to it. There is a historical perspective which we need to take, which tells us that Afghanistan is a very, very complex country, and its nationhood is a very complex issue, and that's why handling Taliban is not that easy, or understanding Taliban as a phenomena needs a greater effort than you need in many other cases. So if we look at the history of Afghanistan, but before that, let's take a look at the geography of Afghanistan. Modern Afghanistan is a landlocked country, and it has an area of around 245,000 square miles. The country is split by a north-south divide along the massive Hindu Kush mountain range. Although there was much intermingling of races in the 20th century, a rough division shows that to the south of the Hindu Kush live majority of Pashtuns or Pathans, as we call them, and some Persian speaking ethnic groups. So they live, the Pashtuns and some Persian speaking ethnic groups, they live to the south of the Hindu Kush mountain range. And to the north of Hindu Kush live Persian and Turkic ethnic groups. So all these are part of Afghanistan. The Hindu Kush itself is populated by Hazaras. It used to be heavily populated by Hazaras, but many of them, Hazaras is an ethnic community which faced persecution in Afghanistan, and a lot of them migrated to Pakistan, where they are again facing persecution from Pakistani establishment and the fundamentalist groups there. So on the south of the Hindu Kush, we have Pakhtuns and some Persian speaking ethnic groups, whereas on the north we had Persian and Turkic, and then in the Hindu Kush itself we had Hazaras and Tajiks. So this is a very myriad, very colorful, very complex, demography also. And all these are tribals areas. So all these are tribes. So it makes it even more complex. So in the far northeast corner, the Pamir Mountains, which Marco Polo, the famous traveler, called the roof of the world, abut Tajikistan, China and Pakistan. Now the inaccessibility of the Pamir means Pamir's mountains means that there is little communication between the diverse and exotic ethnic groups who live in its high snowbound valleys. So you have Hindu Kush, you have Pamirs, you have Tajiks, you have Turkic tribes, you have Hazaras, you have Pashtuns, you have Uzbekis, and there is not much communication between those living in Pamirs and those who are on north, south of Hindu Kush or on Hindu Kush. So now Afghanistan has been broadly under influence of two empires. One is a Persian empire and the second is a Turkic nomadic empire. Apart from that, before 7th century, it also had huge influence of the Hindu civilization. And because if you go to Mahabharat and the area of Gandhar, so it's generally said that this Gandhar was actually Kandahar, what we call today. So the Hindu civilization had extended to Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was a part of the Hindu civilization. But in 7th century, the Arab armies swept through Afghanistan, and by 654 AD, the Arab armies had swept and they forcibly converted the residents of this region to Islam. So what we are witnessing today, Taliban, Afghanistan, so it was not an Islamic country. Ironically, it is now called Islamic Emirate. So, or Taliban is trying to make it an Islamic Emirate. So, but it was actually, there was no Islam here till 654 AD. And but Arab armies, they converted forcibly people living there into Islam. Now from 874 to 999 AD, Afghanistan was under Persian rule. And from 977 to 1186, it was ruled by the Ghaznavid dynasty. This is the same dynasty which had Muhammad Ghazni, who had plundered several parts of Northwest India, Punjab and Eastern Iran also. In 1219, the Mongols led by Genghis Khan captured Afghanistan. They destroyed well-established Afghan cities such as Herat and Balkh. Thousands were massacred, maimed and raped brutally by Mongol army. However, some Mongols interestingly stayed back. They got married to some of the locals, and this gave birth to a new community called Hazaras. That's why you see those Mongol features on Hazaras. And they are easily identifiable, and that has also become their bane actually. And in Pakistan, they have started, putting on wheels, and the men have started putting on dark glasses so that they cannot be identified with their facial features, as the hardcore Islamic fundamentalist groups are always looking for them to target them. Now, after this Genghis Khan, around 160 years later, another successor of Genghis Khan, Timur, as he was known in the west, he is known as Tamerlane. He captured again Herat. Herat is a very important city in 1381. It's, you can say, the cultural capital of Afghanistan, or kind of this part of the world. While Timur, who had built a vast Timurid empire on the foundation that comprised mounds of dead bodies, loot, plunder, and all kind of inhuman acts, had kept his capital at Samarkand. So Timur had kept his capital at Samarkand, which is in modern day Uzbekistan. But his son Shah Rukh moved the capital to Herat, which is in Afghanistan, in 1405. So you can see how complex the situation has been there in Afghanistan. Now Herat, over a period of time, had emerged as one of the most beautiful, habitable and culturally rich and artistically rich cities in the world. Herat, which earlier had Persian influence, as Afghanistan was under Persian rule, now after this Ghaznavid dynasty, and then when Timur came, so it got under the Turkic nomadic influence. And the fusion between the two is an important cultural context that one must keep in mind when we are talking about Afghanistan and Taliban. Now, from the beginning of the 15th century, for almost 300 years, several eastern Afghan tribes, they invaded even India, and many of them in fact ruled at Delhi. So the complexity is getting wider and wider, bigger and bigger. So you have Central Asia, you have Iran. Now India comes into picture in context of Afghanistan. The Afghan Lodi dynasty, it ruled Delhi which was from Afghanistan, ruled Delhi from 1451 to 1526. Now Taimur's descendant Babur, who was driven out of his home in Fergana Valley in Afghanistan. So now Babur comes into picture. So he went on to capture Kabul in 1504. So here is a basically Turkic descendant of Temur, and he captures Kabul, and then he comes to Delhi and he establishes the Mughal dynasty there, which ruled in some parts of India for next couple of 100 years till the Britishers came and brought and kind of basically subjugated India under the colonial rule. Now by 16th century, the Timurid dynasty, which belonged to Temur, and Babur was also later part of it, descendant. It had lost its sheen and Afghanistan went back under the umbrella of Persian rule. So it was under Persian rule, then it comes under the Timurid dynasty, and then it goes back to the Persian rule. And this Persian rule was under the Safavid dynasty. Now this series of invasions which I have talked about, it resulted in a complex ethnic, cultural and religious mix that was to make Afghan nation building extremely difficult. So first myth we must need to bust, and by understanding the fact that Afghanistan cannot be called merely a Pashtun country. There are number of other ethnic tribes which are there and which have equal stake, and Taliban is primarily you can say a Pashtun force, and amongst Pashtun also it represents a certain sect called Durranis. So there were broadly two sects in or two tribes of Pashtuns. One was Ghilzais, the second was Abdali, the infamous ruler you can say, or famous for probably Afghanistan but infamous for India. Ahmad Shah Abdali belonged to this Abdali tribe, and he had defeated his army had defeated, it is said, Marathas in 1761, and then he captured Delhi. So this is a very complex issue, as I told you earlier. So we had to have two different tribes. One is Ghilzai, one is Abdali. Abdalis changed their names to Durranis, and they largely ruled for almost till 1973. Prior 300 years prior to that, they ruled the country. So this is the historical background. So Taliban represent only a section of Pashtuns, and Afghanistan there is much more at stake in Afghanistan. So to end this video, I just want to bring in a couple of more facts. Western Afghanistan, how it is Afghan nationhood is a complex issue. So Western Afghanistan is dominated by the speakers of Persian or Dari. Dari is a language as the Afghan Persian dialect is known. Dari is also spoken by Hazaras in central Afghanistan. The Hazaras were converted to Shiaism, they are Shiites, by Persians. Thereby Afghanistan is largely a Sunni territory, but Hazaras were the biggest Shia group in an otherwise Sunni territory. So that's why there is a complex relationship between Iran and Taliban also, and it's a blow hot, blow cold kind of a thing, because Iran backs Hazaras, whereas Taliban targets Hazaras. There was a massacre of Hazaras last time when Taliban had come to power. So we'll come to that in our next videos. So now in the West, the Tajiks, which are the repositories of Persia's ancient culture, they also speak Dari. In northern Afghanistan, the Uzbeks, the Turkomans, the Kyrgyz and others spoke the Turkic languages of Central Asia. And in the southeast, the Pashtun tribes speak their own tongue, which is Pashto, a mixture of Indo-Persian languages. So they don't have even a common language cutting across the country. So that's why I say that it's a complex issue, and I hope that you like this video. Please do share to our YouTube channel. Have liked the video, you press the like button also, and if you will press the bell icon, you'll keep on getting notifications for new videos which we are posting on this channel. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the second part of this series soon, and till then, thank you. Namaskar.